Welcome to the 2014 Candidate Forum. I'm Steve Erickson, and I'm with the North Hennepin Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to thank you all for attending this get-together. The North Hennepin Area Chamber and the League of Women Voters of Brooklyn Park, Osseo, and Maple Grove are co-sponsoring this Candidate Forum to encourage voter interest in the upcoming election. Neither of our organizations endorses any of the candidates for office. And we'd like to thank the Brooklyn Park City Administration for the use of these marvelous facilities, and also for Northwest Community Television for their support in televising this event live and for their scheduling of the cablecast replays. It's now my pleasure to introduce President Eleanor Johnson, representing the League of Women Voters for our area. Please welcome Eleanor.
Thank you, Steve. Candidate forums are an excellent way for the community to get to know the individual candidates running for office. It also provides an open venue to allow individuals to ask candidates questions that are important to you. Our moderator will be happy to ask your questions if they are legible and meet the following criteria. The question has not already been asked, and it is not a personal attack on any candidate running for office. If you would like to submit a question, raise your hand and an usher will bring you a pen and an index card. Please submit your questions early so the moderator may ask them before the closing statements are made. Now I'd like to introduce to you Kirsten Chomey, who is the moderator for this evening. Kirsten is a member of the Brooklyn Park Osseo Maple Grove League and lives in Maple Grove. We're happy you're here, Kirsten.
Thank you. Good evening. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, I would like to welcome you to tonight's Candidates Forum. The League of Women Voters is an organization that is nonpartisan and volunteer-based. It is organized at the local, state, and national level to encourage citizens to participate in government. While LWV members do study and take stands on issues, we do not endorse nor support political parties or candidates. The LWV does encourage its members as individuals, as we encourage each of you, to get involved in your community and the political party of your choice. However, the views expressed in this forum are those of the individual candidates and not those of the League of Women Voters. By sponsoring this forum this evening, the League provides an opportunity for citizen participation and exposure to candidates, but again does not provide an endorsement of any candidate or candidates. All viable candidates have been invited to participate this evening. Our first forum here is for the City of Brooklyn Park. We have, running for City Council for the East District, we have Reva Chambliss. We have Rich Gates, who is here for the Central District. We have Jeffrey Lundy, who's running for mayor. We have Bob Maida, who's running unopposed and is kind enough to join us this evening from the West District. We have Terry Parks from the East District and Steve Schmidt from the Central District. And our other mayoral candidate is Ms. Joyce Stevens. In tonight's forum, the candidates will start with 4 of the 5 questions they received in advance, in which they have 1 minute to respond. Then our candidates will have up to 30 seconds to respond to each of the questions that are coming from the audience. Finally, they will be given 1 minute for the final question that is their last statements for the evening. Candidates, the League would like to request you to refrain from making any personal attacks on your fellow candidates. I'd like to take this moment to point out our timekeepers for this evening, right there in the front row. They will indicate to you when you have 15 seconds and then show you when your time has expired. Please finish your sentence at that time, as I will be directing the next person's turn. The order has been randomly selected, so pay attention. Audience members, please remember to silence all communication devices at this time. All right, we're going to get started with the first question that they received in advance. For your opening statements, please tell us about your background and previous city involvement that support your candidacy for this position. Our first responder is Ms. Reva Chambliss.
Thank you. I would like to tell you about my background. I've been appointed to 3 different committees by city officials in Brooklyn Park, the Human Rights Commission, the Public Safety Task Force, as well as the core planning team. I'm very active as a 14-year resident of Brooklyn Park, and I'm running because I really care about Brooklyn Park, and that's why I'm so involved.
Thank you. Mr. Rich Gates.
Thank you. I'm a lifelong resident of the Central District. Currently live in the same house I've grown up in. Before getting onto the City Council, I was on the Budget Task Force, the Budget Advisory Commission, and the CLIC Commission, also the 85th Avenue Redevelopment Task Force. I started my own crime watch on my block, which is still going strong after 22 years. I've played McGruff for the police department, and I've been active in many youth sports throughout my days here in Brooklyn Park.
Thank you. Mr. Jeffrey Lundy.
Jeff Lundy, running for mayor, married, proud father of 2 sons. I've been acting as mayor for the last 3+ years. Prior to that, I was a city council member. Prior to that, I was served on many committees, including the 3 task force on apartments, the planning commission. I also served on a Hennepin County Library Board, which we will see the fruit of with that new library soon. And I've served on many other commissions and task force within the city and also within the state and in National League of Cities as well. These experiences have prepared me well to continue on as mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Bob Maida.
Thank you. I'm married. I have 3 sons and I have 3 grandsons. I've been a Brooklyn Park resident for over 30 years. I've been a realtor for over 35 years and a real estate broker, having my own company here in Brooklyn Park for the last 25 years. I've been on the city council for the last 2 years and representing the West District. And I've been a council liaison for the Budget Advisory Committee, the Audit Committee, the Charter Committee, and the Neighborhood Task Force. And I would like to take just a moment, if I may, to say happy birthday to my mother-in-law, Eugenie, who lives with us. So we just celebrated her 90th birthday. So I just wanted to say happy birthday to her.
Racking up the brownie points. Mr. Terry Parks.
My wife and I moved into Brooklyn Park 32 years ago. Since then, I've served on the Brooklyn Park Fire Department as a district chief, along with my full-time job as a captain on the Minneapolis Fire Department. I served my country during the Vietnam conflict. I've served on the Human Rights Commission as the chair. I served in the Park and Rec Commission and the Charter Commission. I served 25 years with the Tater Days Committee, where I've been the parade chair and the festival site chair. I've been active with the Lions and the Elks. I've been an election judge for 14 years. I have assisted in many faces of Brooklyn Park. I coached Little League for 26 years, along with hockey and football. I've been a scout master and a den leader. I'm currently serving on the task force for aging, finding ways to make it better a lifestyle for seniors here in the community. So I've always been in public service since I left high school.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Schmidt.
Thank you, and good evening. My name is Steve Schmidt, a Brooklyn Park resident since 1957. I'm old, but I don't look that old. I've been married to my wife, Susan, for 42 years. We have 2 sons, a daughter-in-law, 2 grandchildren with another one on the way, all living in Brooklyn Park. I'm retiring from the Brooklyn Park Fire Department at the end of this year with 39 years of service. 9 of those years I served as your fire chief. I've been on the Planning Commission for 5 years, the Business Forward Advisory Board for 2 years, and I served as the Planning Commission liaison to the Recreation and Parks Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Joy Stevens.
Hi, I've been a 16-year resident of Brooklyn Park. My family purchased our home here 16 years ago. We've raised 4 kids here in the city of Brooklyn Park, all of whom have attended local schools. I have been working actively as a community member in the city around racial and economic equity issues, building partnerships with local elected officials and state elected officials to deliver the sorts of results that help homeowners stay in their home, that helps ensure that all of our kids have a chance to have a quality education, that helps to advocate for things like expanded access to transit, access to health care, and really those sorts of solutions that help to move the city of Brooklyn Park forward. I also have a tremendous amount of business experience that I have been able to attribute to the role that I've had in the community, bringing people together of diverse backgrounds and helping to work together to find the sorts of solutions that make our lives better.
Thank you. Our next question. What are your top 3 priorities if elected? Our first responder is Mr. Gates.
Thank you. My top 3 priorities, number 1 has always been the youth, but the youth and seniors, roads and infrastructure, and then healthy neighborhoods.
Thank you. Mr. Maida?
Thank you. My first priority is to get the budget under control. We've seen a huge increase of at least $2 million a year for the last 6 or 7 years. And I know that our seniors and our low-income families can't afford all these increases that we're getting. So we need to get the budget under control by limiting travel and conferences. And we need to attract more businesses and redevelopment. We need to get concentrating a little bit more on redevelopment now in some of the areas that have been neglected since we're focusing a lot on 610.
Thank you. Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you. Number one for me is keeping the spending under control. I believe that our current rate of spending is unsustainable in the long term. Number two is to determine the future of the proposed Bottineau LRT line. I believe that there are serious safety issues in the current design that have not yet been addressed, and I am unconvinced at this time that the line still makes sense for Brooklyn Park. Number three is to address future housing needs, including seniors and multifamily housing, along with continuing to attract high-end commercial development that produces good jobs.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens?
My three priorities are actively pursuing the sort of economic development that moves the entire city of Brooklyn Park forward, not just the 610 corridor. Engaging a broader cross-section of our community so that those people who are at the table making decisions truly reflect the community of Brooklyn Park. And lastly, ensuring that we are taking advantage of economic development opportunities that put Brooklyn Park on the map as the 6th largest city in the state of Minnesota, stop being the sort of city where people come home to go to sleep, and actually be the sort of city where people can live.
Mr. Lundy?
My three priorities are public safety. Where in Brooklyn Park we have the lowest crime rate in over 20 years, despite having 25,000 residents more. We've learned that public safety is not just about handcuffs, it's about providing youth with opportunities to do other things. And if you do that, good things will happen. Business development remains a key, and Brooklyn Park is one of the leading cities in the metro in creating jobs here in our city. What we need to do is also continue to strive for higher end jobs, and also make sure that we create opportunities for people who live in our city to work in our city. Lastly, and certainly not least, is community engagement. Simply, our city hall needs to reflect more of our diversity of our city. We also need to make sure that we reflect on in decision making, the people who live here. And because we're a city of many cultures and diversity, we have to make sure we reach out to each group in its own unique way that will drive most results.
Mr. Parks?
For me, number one is public safety, making sure the police and fire have the tools they need to do their job. Next, I'd like to see the budget being balanced without raising taxes. The city is asking for 9% increase in 2015. Our budget has risen $8 million in 5 years. I worry about the fixed income and low income residents who don't have the money to pay. We need to put a stop to unnecessary spending. Maybe less out of town seminars is one of the ways we can do that. I'm not looking to eliminate jobs. We have a great staff here in Brooklyn Park. I'm just asking that we watch our spending. And third, our city's motto is thriving community, inspiring pride where opportunities exist for all. I want to make sure that happens. We have a wonderful, diverse community, and we're heading in the right direction, but we just need to do it correctly. And I think treating everybody fairly is the key to that success.
And Ms. Chambliss.
Thank you so much. I believe one of the top priorities for Brooklyn Park is that we achieve prosperity and equity throughout every neighborhood for all people of Brooklyn Park. Because when everybody does well in Brooklyn Park, our city is going to truly prosper. I also believe that we should have safe and stable neighborhoods. Yes, we do have a low rate of crime. It's been the lowest it's been in over 20 years, but we can do better. But as we make our city safe, we must make sure that everyone feels welcome and that we continue on the road of lowering crime. Thirdly, I think Brooklyn Park should be a destination place. And what residents have told me over the last couple of years is that they want to see an opportunity to be able to shop in their city. They want to be able to have the kind of housing options in their city, as well as entertainment, restaurant, and other venues that are going to increase their quality of life.
Thank you. Our next 1-minute question is, our city is made up of many races and cultures. What unique qualities would you bring to city government that can bring these diverse groups together? Our first responder is Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you. Brooklyn Park is a veritable melting pot of different races and cultures. While I don't possess any unique qualities, what I do have is over 4 decades of unique experience in helping, counseling, and educating people of many races and cultures, some while experiencing the worst day of their life. As a college instructor, I have had and continue to have many students of many different races and cultures in my classes and have been able to work with all of them to ensure that it is a good educational outcome for everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Parks?
Well, I don't think I'm the only one in this, but as I'm concerned, there's only one race in the world, and that's the human race. We do have many cultures here in Brooklyn Park, and the diversity is the biggest asset we have. When I was the chairperson for the Human Rights Commission, we got the city to change our name from Human Relations to Human Rights because that's the work we were doing. We got 2 interpretation lines in the city where the residents who don't speak English can still speak with the staff. The police department has one and the city hall has one. We started Many Faces of Brooklyn Park and we're bringing all cultures under one roof. I was on a recruiting team with the Minneapolis Fire Department recruiting minorities and women because frankly when I was on we didn't have any. What I have to offer is open mind, good listening skills, and one who works side by side with anybody. I've always promoted equality, and that won't change. And I think transparency and dialogue is a key to make that a success.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens?
I've spent the last 5 years of my life organizing with a variety of people inside of the faith community of different races, different classes, different cultures. It's work that I find great pleasure in doing, and it's work and the sort of experience that I intend to bring to the office of Mayor of Brooklyn Park as a person of color. I certainly know what it's like to be a person of color in the city of Brooklyn Park. I know what it's like to be low income. I know what it's like to be middle class. And these are the sorts of experiences that help me to relate to people of all different sorts of backgrounds. I echo the sentiments already shared that our diversity is one of our greatest strengths as a community, but that diversity is not just necessarily racial and ethnic. It's also about economics. It's also about gender. It's about sexual orientation. It's a variety of different levels of diversity that help to define us as a community, and I'm the sort of person who not only has experience organizing these sorts of communities, but has a great passion around doing so.
Thank you. Mr. Gates?
Thank you. Throughout my time in this city, I have been friends with and continue to be friends with anybody and everybody. I don't care what color you are, what gender you are, what anything. To me, as long as you're human, I'll work with you. I had the opportunity last November to go to Liberia and work with the Liberians. That was an amazing opportunity, and to come back as a changed person and to be able to understand now why we have so many issues with the cultures that we do. And that issue is we don't work with them. That's what we need to continue to do. The biggest way we can do that is continue our community engagement initiative and strengthen that opportunity.
Thank you. Ms. Chambliss? Thank
you. I believe that what other people have said, that diversity is something that is very important for the city of Brooklyn Park. It is what we are. It says who we are. And I think as a person with a background of more than 30 years in business working with diverse groups and quality improvement, we should be able to look at opportunities for utilizing the strengths of diversity. We can have creative ideas that we wouldn't have thought of maybe with diversity, and so I think that's a great strength. What I believe in terms of diversity is that I can utilize my experience in working with people in the community. I've been involved with the Human Rights Commission. I've been involved with several collaboratives working to discuss ideas and initiatives and needs to further our city. And I believe that's going to increase our quality of life as we work together.
Thank you. Mr. Maida.
Thank you. I think over the last 2 years, people have come to realize that if they have a question or a problem, if they call me or send me an email, that I will respond. Currently, right now, I'm working with one of our residents who has an idea for a multicultural market and event center to be built in a redevelopment area here in Brooklyn Park. It's a grandiose idea, and he's now just looking for the funding on it right now. But he knew when he had this that he had to come to me because I would listen and help him take care of his problem. So I'm working with him on that right now. So that's just one of the ideas in bringing these multiculturals and diverse groups together and make it a large event place for them to take place. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Lundy.
I think as mayor, I've spent the last few years doing nothing but working on how the city works with people of diverse backgrounds in our city. It was in that role that I went to Liberia, and I knew that role would be great for some, but controversial with others. So what I did is I paid my way there. And I did it because it removed the aspect of why is taxpayers' money going there, and it allowed us to focus on the why, which is we need to do a better job of reaching out to people of diverse backgrounds. And to do that, you need to understand. You have to go the mile and walk the walk, and that's what I did by going there. I think that another thing is one of the things I've done as a candidate is said I'll knock on any door, any time, any place, answer any question, anyone, anything, because I believe there's not only diversity of ancestry and ethnicity and all the types, but there's diversity of ideas. And our city has many different ideas about how city spending should be, how city's government should be run, and you need to be able to reach out to all of them. And I think uniquely positioned I am to do exactly that.
Thank you. Our next question. Do you support tax abatement policies to attract new business? Why or why not? What else would you do to support local business development in Brooklyn Park? Our first responder is Mr. Lundy.
It's a great question, because I think, people think about abatement, they think about Target. And what Target is to our city is a catalyst, and a catalyst is something that gets the engine going. And if you look at what is happening on 610, you'll see lots of things going. I think that people look at it as abatement and think that's all we do as a city, and it's not true. We do many things. There are things for different levels of businesses. There are small business loans. There are business development corporation. There are things that we try to do that when people have certain needs, we try to reach out to them in their own way and provide that funding, that investment, that assistance that we can. Sometimes it's just advice. So really what we need to do as a city is reach out to everyone. I do think abatement does play a role in our city's development, but as things start to go, it's going to be less and less about abatement and more about telling people, hey, here's how great it is. You look at what kind of companies we've recruited. Every city in the state would kill to have Target, Baxter, Olympus Medical, Prairie Care in their city. We have them. We've got them. We're going to keep building on that.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens.
I do believe that tax abatements and tax increment financing are not altogether bad. As they are stated, I think older suburbs like Brooklyn Park really do need the benefit of things like tax increment financing in order to attract large corporations to do business here in Brooklyn Park. Where I think we need to take a stronger role as a city, though, is holding those corporations accountable for the legislatively mandated commitments that they need to make in exchange for those dollars and the promises that they make. We've not done a very good job of that as a city, and as a result of that, homeowners like me, small business owners, end up paying the price for that. So tax increment financing, tax abatements are not a bad thing. We have to be much more strategic in how we utilize those dollars in attracting businesses so that homeowners and small business owners don't get left on the hook.
Thank you. Ms. Chambliss.
Thank you. Yes, I believe that tax abatements, its purpose is to attract businesses to Brooklyn Park, but we have a lot of qualities in Brooklyn Park where corporations want to come, and I think we should utilize that. We should improve our image. We should use our good image as well, because I think we have a good image in Brooklyn Park, and that needs to be said. I believe that in terms of Minnesota, we are a state where corporations provide a lot of benefits to our community members, and we should work with those corporations to provide those benefits and include those in agreements that we have with corporations, because I think that will help make our city better. And I believe that our city has a lot of pluses that can come forward in the negotiations with corporations so that we can get those community benefits. So as city council member, I would be encouraging that.
Thank you. Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you. I support tax abatement as just another tool in our toolbox for attracting new development. Some of the other possibilities that we could use would be to assist with maybe land purchase, networking, utility costs, etc. We're only constrained by how innovative that we can be. The Business Forward Advisory Board has done an outstanding job of working with the business community to find out from their perspective how the city can be even more business friendly as we go forward.
Thank you. Mr. Maida.
I have a very political answer to that question, and it's yes and no. While I'm not a big fan of tax abatements, I understand, and I've talked to a number of commercial brokers, that in order to be competitive in the marketplace and attract new businesses, that abatements may be necessary. But I also believe that abatements need to be tied to job commitments, and if we can do that, we'd be much better off. And we need to curb our spending until these abatements are over with, and we start seeing more of the taxes from these businesses before we start spending any more money. I also like to encourage businesses to support each other, along with not just the residents to support local businesses, but businesses to support each other.
Thank you. Mr. Gates?
Thank you. I think Brooklyn Park has done a good job at looking at when and where we use our tax abatements and TIF financing. I do believe that tax abatements and TIF financing is appropriate, but as it was stated earlier, I also believe that they need to be tied to high-quality jobs. We've done a really good job with the Business Forward Task Force. We've got a lot of good ideas and have learned and listened from the business owners of Brooklyn Park to know what they need. One of the things I think we can look at is our regulations and codes for businesses, new businesses. And I also believe we can do microloans and other financing to help these businesses move in here.
Thank you. And Mr. Parks?
At first, when I heard the large corporations like Target were getting tax breaks, I wasn't too thrilled about it. But when I really started looking at how that works and how it goes, I thought it was a good thing. Target still pays lots of taxes to the community, and in the long run, those businesses like Target and Baxter help the tax base. They bring in other businesses like restaurants and retail, and they bring in new jobs. I'm hoping in the future they get more involved with sponsorship of Tater Days and other community activities. As far as supporting local business development, I have talked to several businesses that wanted to be in our city but didn't want to jump through the hoops that we had set in place. We have to support those businesses, and we have to let our businesses know that we appreciate them. I think communications and great customer service is needed from both sides.
Thank you. We're now moving into the 30-second questions that come from the audience. Audience members, remember, if you have a question, raise your hand and someone will get you a card, and then raise it when you have your question ready, and they'll collect it for you so that I can get it asked. Our first one for the 30 seconds, now that we're talking about image and a potato. Brooklyn Park used to be known for its many potato farms. It was symbolized by a large potato. Now that the city has grown and is the 6th largest in Minnesota, what would be a more appropriate image or icon for Brooklyn Park? Our first responder is Mr. Maida.
Boy, that's a really hard question, but I think we need to stick with the potato. I mean, that's what we've been, and I can't see us changing anything right now. I mean, since we have such a diverse community, maybe we can get, some Yukon Golds, some sweet potatoes, we can incorporate a bunch of other type of potatoes along with it. So, but I think we should stick with it.
Ms. Chambliss.
I think it would be great to have a garden in Brooklyn Park, a garden that includes potatoes and also includes people. Brooklyn Park, whatever our icon whatever our icon is, it should be something that reflects the values of Brooklyn Park. It reflects the values of the people and reflects the strengths of Brooklyn Park. So I would include the garden and I would include the people.
There you go. Mr. Parks.
I, too, want to keep the potato. It's part of our history and part of where we come from. I would like to see us implement more. I mean, we've got a river going through our town that we don't seem to use or do any history about. And I think if we could just get the history of that going part of our festival, that'd be great. The diversity now is getting better with the different programs that we have, and I think we need to reflect the diversity also.
Mr. Gates.
Thank you. I think it needs to stay the potato. Potato is our history. That's what Brooklyn Park was built on, was potato farms. And I don't want to get away from that right now.
Mr. Schmidt.
I'm fine with the potato.
Mr. Lundy.
This is very difficult for me to say. Anybody who watches our council meetings will know, but I'm going to have to agree with Councilmember Maida. I do agree that we should keep the potato, and if we had a little different variety of potatoes, I think that would be a good thing too. Thank you.
And Ms. Stevens.
I agree that the potato should stay. It speaks to the history of who Brooklyn Park is, but I do think in addition to that, we need to find additional ways to reflect the diversity of the community and who we are today, in addition to the potato. I'm also going to agree with Councilmember Maida about the variety of potatoes. That's very clever. I like that answer.
I think the potato eyes have it. Next question. Please tell us how you have been involved in the city of Brooklyn Park before you decided to run for the city council or the mayor. First responder will be Mr. Parks.
Like I said before, my wife and I moved in here in 1982, and I've been committed ever since. I've been actually active volunteering in just about every aspect of this city for 32 years before I decided to run for city council. Been on several commissions, coached a lot of kids, mentored a lot of kids, and worked a lot in the schools of Monroe, Jackson, and Champlain Park High School. So I'm not going to be embarrassed by how much I've been involved.
Mr. Schmidt.
I've lived here for well in excess of 50-plus years, so I've seen this city grow quite dramatically. But again, I've been on the fire department for 39 years, planning commission, business forward advisory board. I coached hockey when my kids were little. In fact, I was even part of starting up the hockey association way back when. And other than that, just living as a resident.
Mr. Lundy?
Prior to being elected city council, I was a member of the planning commission, Hennepin County Library Board, all three task forces on apartments and affordable housing in our city, the Human Rights Commission, also active in my church, St. Gerard's as well. And so what I've tried to do is just find things that I can help make a difference by giving my time.
Mr. Maida?
Like too many of our residents, prior to being on the city council, I just didn't pay much attention to what was going on in the city. I was busy living our lives. I was busy working, raising our children, going to baseball and football games with my grandkids. But after my son had spent some time on the city council, that he convinced me that I should do that after he had left. And I thought, this would be a great way for me to really get involved, and I should have done it much sooner. But thank you.
Ms. Stevens.
I have been a volunteer with Osseo Public Schools. I served on the Delta, the district equity leadership team. I've also served on DPAC. My daughter is a marching band, a band member at Park Center, so I've served as a Park Center band booster. Mom, I've also been a faith-based community organizer in Brooklyn Park for many years, working primarily around bringing Target to the table to talk about ways in which they can be a better community partner, and built a fantastic relationship with Target that's bearing much fruit. In addition to that, my husband and some other families, we started a church in Brooklyn Park about 10 years ago, and just been a mom and a resident.
Ms. Chambliss.
I've been a resident, as I said, for a long time in Brooklyn Park, and while I was a resident in Brooklyn Park, I've been raising my son and spending a lot of time with him, going to school activities. I've also been a leader and volunteer throughout my life, working with young students to help them achieve technology skills, and also working with community collaboratives so we can be a better place, and doing Get Out the Vote, which is very important for people's civic rights.
Mr. Gates.
Since the age of 5, I've been involved in politics, so pretty much my entire life, and I'll blame my mom for that one. I was a Tater Days Big Wheel champion back in my younger days. I've been through the BPAA program. I started my crime watch in my neighborhood, which again is still going strong. I was on my class cabinet in my junior year in high school. I've been on the CLIC Commission, the Budget Commissions, 85th Avenue Redevelopment, and I was also a member of the award-winning Park Center Marching Band.
Okay. What is your position on the proposed light rail that will run through Brooklyn Park? Do you feel it will improve the lives of Brooklyn Park residents? Why or why not? First responder is Ms. Stevens.
I firmly support the Bottineau Light Rail Transit expansion in Brooklyn Park. I think that Bottineau is going to be the largest infrastructure investment that we can expect in our city for decades to come. It is going to be a tremendous asset, not only for the people who live in Brooklyn Park, many of whom are becoming increasingly transit dependent, but also for our small businesses who are looking to thrive in the city of Brooklyn Park by bringing additional people to the city and putting Brooklyn Park on the map where it belongs as the 6th largest city in our state.
Mr. Lundy.
I agree. It's an important, asset that the city has been looking at for a number of years. I think when it came time to actually, vote is when we found out a lot of the details about how it's going to affect people. We found that we didn't have a lot of answers to all the questions that we needed. In particular, exactly how were people going to be acquired, who would be affected. And so what we did, and I made the motion to table it, because I believe that until we have those answers, we couldn't vote yes or no. I do believe fully that if there is a rail, that is the route. I know some people like to believe that it'll go somewhere else, but it isn't. And so I do believe that after we have that community-wide discussion, we can come to a decision.
Mr. Gates.
Thank you. I agree wholeheartedly with Mr. Lundy here. I support the idea of light rail, but I think that there's way too many questions that are unanswered to be able to say yes through Brooklyn Park.
Mr. Parks.
I'm not totally against light rail, but I'm totally against it going down Broadway and taking people out of their homes. What made it on a personal level, even the other day, I found out they're taking Wagner's Drive-In also. So for right now, with what I know and what I've learned, I wouldn't vote for it.
Ms. Chambliss.
I believe that transportation in Brooklyn Park is an opportunity to be connected to transportation throughout the region of Minnesota. So I do support light rail. I believe it will be good for allowing our seniors to become more mobile in getting around, our young people to become more mobile, and it will also increase opportunities for jobs and corporations to come to Brooklyn Park. I think light rail is a good option to improve our roads and our congestion that will be coming.
Mr. Schmidt?
Even though I am a believer in light rail, I still have concerns that I'm yet unconvinced that it makes sense for Brooklyn Park. As I stated earlier, I think there are some serious safety issues in the current design that have yet to be addressed. And until that happens, and until somebody can convince me that it makes sense for Brooklyn Park, at this point I'm not in favor of it, but I'm not totally against it. I think light rail is more of an urban transportation system than it is a suburban transportation system, but we'll wait and see.
And Mr. Maida?
Well, I'm totally against the light rail, especially coming up West Broadway. I've seen what happened to Hiawatha, and where it just took the industrial properties that were there, and it's all now low-income, high-rise apartment buildings. And I agree that it is an urban trail, and I don't want to see that on West Broadway. So I'm against the light rail coming through Brooklyn Park. It's just not time for it yet.
Mm-hmm. There's a follow-up question to that one, and some of you touched on this, so feel free to expand if you'd like. Do you support condemning residents' personal property to make way for the light rail? And that first responder will be Mr. Gates.
Do I support condemning people's properties for light rail?
The way it's worded.
No and yes. Mm-hmm. More no than yes. But again, until we have the answers from the federal government and Hennepin County on exactly what's going to happen and where this is going to go, I can't say yes or no to that. I'm not in favor of condemnation, but in sometimes it does make sense.
Mr. Lundy?
I think it's a great question. If we find as a community that light rail is important, yes, I'll vote for that. I think about the votes I've taken where we condemn property that is now the overpass at 169 and 93rd, where one person was killed usually every year. I think of other times in our city where the city ends up having to do things like this. It's messy. No one likes to do it. It's expensive. But sometimes in the scheme of where we have to do for public safety, those things are necessary.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Chambliss?
Light rail that is proposed to come from downtown to the city of Brooklyn Park, about 13 plus miles. We want to ensure that the impact is minimal. People have said today that we don't know that much. This has been studied for many, many years, and the data is out there. I think they have looked at where the impact can be the least, and I think that's what we should continue to do. Look at the benefits and see if they outweigh the minimal risk of losing property.
Mr. Parks?
I won't need all 30 seconds just to say no. I don't support condemning houses.
Thank you. Mr. Maida.
I realize that in some development projects that a few houses have to be lost, but on the entire light rail line, when it runs through Minneapolis, Golden Valley, Robbinsdale, Crystal, and into Brooklyn Park, in all the other cities, it's going to affect one residence. When it gets into Brooklyn Park and they run it off the line, off the railroad line, it's going to affect over 100 families. So that's why I don't agree with it.
Ms. Stevens?
I don't take the loss of homes lightly or personal property lightly. I do recognize that those are part of the complex decisions and conversation that we have to have around the expansion of West Broadway and the development of the Bottineau Transit Line. I believe, based on how transit expansion has worked in other parts of the city and other parts of the country, that the benefits outweigh the negative, but the conversations still need to be had. It doesn't take a year to have the conversations. It's about staying engaged in the conversation and staying at the table and talking through the difficult parts.
Thank you. And Mr. Schmidt?
As I stated earlier, I still have some very serious concerns with the current design as far as safety issues are concerned. But as of yet, I still remain unconvinced that the LRT line as proposed really makes sense for Brooklyn Park. So until I am convinced otherwise, I would have to go along with, at this point, no.
Thank you. Our next question. What is the best way to assure that the City of Brooklyn Park employees reflect the demographics of its city? First responder is Ms. Stevens.
The best way to ensure that the staff of Brooklyn Park reflect the diversity of the city is by setting standards and enforcing standards for hiring people that actually live inside the community and reflect the community in part, and taking more of an intentional step to reach out to the diverse groups that, that we seek to have reflected in our staff.
Mr. Schmidt.
I have to go along with what Joy said. She said it very eloquently, and it makes perfect sense to me.
Thank you. Mr. Parks?
I mentioned the motto before, and we got to live up to that. Our motto is a thriving community, inspiring pride, where opportunities exist for all. And we really need to look at all the groups when we're doing our hiring. We need to reach out a little more to everybody and give everybody the same opportunity.
Mr. Maida?
We have a number of diverse people working in the City Hall, but I agree that in hiring practices, we should give a first priority to residents of Brooklyn Park. That should be one of the main criteria, that they be a resident. And then from there, it's just pick the best person for the job.
Mr. Lundy?
I think, it's important is to have that strategy that says here's where we want to be and how we're going to get there, and look at the ways that people get jobs in the city. And there isn't a lot of turnover, so unless you're going to start firing people, you're not going to be able to do something overnight. What we have to do is take the long view and try to incrementally increase those opportunities. And one of the ways that I look at is the ways that people become seasonal, part-time, full-time workers at our city, is to make sure that we're capturing a diverse set of candidates in those. And also I want to look at the way that our website actually creates barriers to people who are looking to apply for employment.
Mr. Gates.
Ditto to everybody. I really think that we need to really look at how we do our hiring standards, but I do agree that, we don't have a lot of turnover, so it's not going to happen overnight. But I do agree that, that if you're a Brooklyn Park resident, you should be top of the list, because I would rather hire somebody from Brooklyn Park than outside of Brooklyn Park.
And Ms. Chambliss.
As a business person that has been involved with continuous improvement, I think there's always room to do better, and we can look at strategies together on how we can do better. We can grow jobs so that our city can grow, and as we grow jobs, we can grow in diversity. I think we can also use consultants who've been successful in creating diverse workforces, and I believe I've talked to city officials about that, and I think we can also talk to the community. They can come up with some great ideas for how we can grow our city, not only in government, but in private industry.
Thank you. Our next question, what approach do you suggest for attracting businesses with good-paying jobs to come to Brooklyn Park? Ms. Chambliss.
The approach to attract good-paying jobs is to redevelop our existing neighborhoods and develop the new neighborhoods. That is going to allow us to grow jobs and bring in tax revenue as well. I think that Brooklyn Park can grow and be a great city. We just need to come up with strategies for putting into action so that we can grow jobs. And we need to have multiple options for jobs at all levels, not just the high-income jobs, but also the lower-skilled jobs and in between. It's very important.
Thank you. Mr. Gates?
I think we need to market ourselves as a community who has everything that corporations need and want. We have the people. We have the diversity, we have great parks, but most of all, we have the great people that are right here in Brooklyn Park. I also believe that we have a lot of opportunity for redevelopment in this city, and we can propose that to these corporations to help revitalize our neighborhoods as well.
Mr. Lundy?
I think one of the keys is getting a staff that we have that provides quick service to businesses. The reason Olympus Medical came to Brooklyn Park was we turned around their application in 4 weeks, which is unheard of. So sometimes it's not the money, sometimes it's not the location, sometimes they need to be in the ground rolling. We need to look at continue, which we have done, is target different ways that people make decisions, making sure that we're at the table, that we're participants with greater MSP, that we are actively seeing how that we can attract businesses through other things. Is it the amenities? Is it local apartments? Or is it other transportation?
Thank you. Mr. Maida?
I look at the city as a product, and like any product that you want to sell, you need to advertise. You've got to get the word out there that we are the best place to come to, that we have the best amenities, that we have the population that wants to work, and that we have people with the skills to do the work. So we need to simply get our name out there and say, here, come here, take a look at us.
Mr. Parks?
Right now, we're about 85% full with businesses. We've got 15% development ready to go. I think one of the things we've gotten better at is the way that we conduct business. We used to have a bad reputation about Brooklyn Park, and I think now with the community, with the people that we have and the diversity we have, I think we can attract a lot of good businesses here.
Mr. Schmidt?
Right now, I believe that we are doing a really good job. A lot of it is behind the scenes that really doesn't get out to the public. The Business Forward Advisory Board is consistently meeting with developers, business owners, and getting their input. The annual Business Forward conference that the city puts on is attracting a much higher number of developers, commercial realtors than they originally had expected. And it is getting our name out there. And people are beginning to recognize us, especially in the development and the commercial real estate markets.
Ms. Stevens?
Continued investment in infrastructure will help to attract large corporations who are going to bring living wage jobs. Continuing to invest in, or beginning to invest in creating a 21st century workforce through partnership with our school districts and helping to ensure that those kids, particularly those kids who are currently struggling, are actually on track to success beyond high school. That's work that I've been doing for many years, and it's work that I will continue doing. Finding new innovative ways for our corporations who are here in Brooklyn Park to share in the responsibility of helping to ensure that we're developing that workforce to be able to secure those jobs in the future.
Okay. Oh, there's such a good pun with this one, without rehashing the potato discussion. Brooklyn Park is currently rebranding itself. How would you like to see the city rebranded, and what image do you think Brooklyn Park should portray? We touched a little bit on this. Maybe we can go a little more in depth with what you want to tell everyone else about Brooklyn Park. First responder will be Mr. Gates.
This is a tough one because I think that it's hard to rebrand yourself until you get the people inside the city to understand that we are a good city and to start talking good about ourselves. When I go out in the community and even outside of the community, all I hear is, how can you live in Brooklyn Park? That's such a bad place to live. No, it's not. It's a great place to live. We have so many great things in this city. And until we get our own people to start saying good things about us, it's hard to rebrand ourselves.
Mr. Lundy?
I think the most important thing about rebranding is actually rebrand with truth, is that you can't tell people that it is a better place if it's not. When you talk about public safety, when you talk about bringing jobs, you talk about diverse population, if you don't believe in that, people aren't going to believe in you either. If you want to tell people this is a great place to be, then it needs to be a great place to be. And you can't put lipstick on a pig. You sure can't put, good news over bad. And so what we've tried to do at the city is not only say, let's rebrand, but let's also deliver on those promises that make people believe that this is a good place to be.
Mr. Maida.
Back when they first started talking about branding, I simply said that you can't tell everybody you have the best burger in town when you're serving loofah meat on a bun. So you have to actually live and the city has to be the best at what it is. You can't just tell people that it is. It has to be there. So I agree that we do need to have people that live in the city go out and tell other people outside the city that, yes, this is a great place to live.
Mr. Parks.
I think we've gotten much better at that branding side of it. I know I've heard over the years about how bad Brooklyn Park is. I hear that from the outside. But I think we as a people ourselves are starting to take control of our own city, and we're starting to make it better. I think if we live the dream and we tell the other people about what it's like here, people are going to come.
Mr. Schmidt?
It has to start from within, not only from the residents that live here, the business community that's located here, the workers that come to work here, but it also has to start with the employees that are employed by the city of Brooklyn Park, because if we keep telling other people how bad it is here, even though we work here, why would somebody from the outside think that it is a good place? So we need to start from the inside working out.
Ms. Stevens?
I agree that the best branding strategy is to tell the truth. We have a motto that says that it's a thriving community, inspiring pride, where opportunity exists for all, and for far too many people in Brooklyn Park, that's just not the case. We have growing areas of racially concentrated poverty. If we as a city do not take advantage of those opportunities to address those challenges, then these individuals will not feel like they're thriving. They will not feel like they've got pride in their city because of that. We can't take a back seat and pretend like those problems are going to go away by ignoring them and focusing our attention on the 610 corridor.
And Ms. Chambliss.
I agree with Joy. I believe that in order to increase our image and make it better, we need to invest in our community. We need to invest in our people. I have been walking throughout Brooklyn Park from one side to the next while I've been campaigning, and every time I say, this is such a great city, it is so beautiful. What I think we need to do is a better job of communicating how beautiful Brooklyn Park is, the people as a part of that beauty, and we need to show that. Take them on a journey and let them see how great our city is, and bring them here for activities. We could have an open streets event and a lot of other events as well.
There you go. I actually put my son in Brooklyn Park soccer, and he loved it this summer, so there you go. Do you believe the city needs to revitalize the 85th Street corridor, parentheses, the forgotten parts of Brooklyn Park? Why or why not? First responder will be Mr. Lundy.
I think, like everything, you tend to concentrate resources on certain areas, and I think as 610 starts to take on a life of its own, we're able to look at redevelopment. Redevelopment is more expensive. People talk about incentives. When you talk about redevelopment, the honest truth is that developers and business owners are going to look for more incentives offered. So it is a different type of proposition. It needs to have a plan, what we want the outcome to be. And I do think that we need to continue to look at that. We have done some of it, but we need to do more.
Thank you. Mr. Maida?
I don't believe that 85th should be our top priority. I think the Brooklyn Boulevard would be more of a big concern for redeveloping, like the Huntington Place apartments that were torn down, and that whole area down there between Zane and Regent. I think that area we should concentrate on first for redevelopment, and then as things come up along 85th, that's fine. But I don't think we should make that a priority.
Mr. Parks?
I, too, don't think that 85th is a priority right now. We've got 610 going through. There's some areas up there that we need to develop. Brooklyn Boulevard was another area that we talked about that needs to be redeveloped at some point. I'm just trying to get it a better place to go through. 85th right now, I mean, I wouldn't put it out of the question, but right now it's not a priority for me.
Mr. Schmidt?
I don't believe that there's a priority for either 610 corridor or south of 85th. I think they both should receive the same equal priority. We have started doing redevelopment both on the residential side through the NSP program and on the commercial side through some of the shopping centers that have redone their exteriors. We've gotten new tenants to come in. It's working. Can we do better? We can certainly try. A lot of that is based off of what the developers are willing to put in. So the priority north is the same as the priority south.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens.
I would agree with Mr. Schmidt that we need to look at the whole city and build a plan to develop the whole city. Certainly, I live south of 85th, so I'm all about building up south of 85th and adding the sorts of amenities that make living south of 85th a great place to be. Returning that corridor, Brooklyn Boulevard corridor, back to its heyday of who we used to be in Brooklyn Park and having lots of amenities there on that strip, but also looking to the 610 corridor as well. It's a different type of development that's going on up there, and I think that we both need to look at south and north at the same time.
Ms. Chambliss?
Yes, I do believe we should have balance in how we redevelop our city and how we develop our city. We have the Village Creek area that has gotten some very good development and that can continue. And I think there are some opportunities to improve along 85th Avenue and beyond. I really don't like the idea of looking at drawing these lines through the city. We are one Brooklyn Park, and I think we should look at the short-term and long-term goals so that every part of the city gets addressed as it should be.
Thank you. Mr. Gates.
85th Avenue has a redevelopment plan. It was done over 10 years ago. I was on the redevelopment task force. While I don't think it's our top priority, when we have an opportunity to look at a redevelopment, either purchasing land for future redevelopment, I think we need to do that. I think as a council, we need to sit down and actually look at the city and say, where is our top priorities? Because we don't have one right now. All of our resources have been up on 610. And we have many areas in the city, not just Brooklyn Boulevard and Zane, Humboldt and Xerxes. We've got plenty of places that need redevelopment.
Thank you. Our next question. Can you give an example of a type of conflict you had to help resolve, and how would you apply that experience to city council or mayor position? First responder is Mr. Maida.
Well, the last conflict I had to resolve was a parking issue down on Douglas and 65th and 67th Avenue. So I dealt with the residents. We had meetings down there with the Inspector Bruley and with Ms. Chardonnel, who was the neighborhood coordinator, and we ended up making a resolution and getting things taken care of that hopefully will solve their problem with their parking issue.
Thank you. Mr. Parks?
It really depends on where the conflict is. At home, I just say, yes, dear, and then we're done with it. But other conflicts I've had with Minneapolis Fire Department and working with Steve on the Brooklyn Park Fire Department, conflicts that we had was mainly about budgets and how we're going to run our fire departments. We talked about it. One thing you can do with a conflict is listen to both sides, hear the whole story, and then come up with a resolution from there.
Mr. Schmidt?
First and foremost is getting my grandkids to pick up their toys when they go home. But with that said, on my years on the fire department, conflicts were constant and never-ending. Conflicts with employees, conflicts with city councils, conflicts with city managers. I managed to get 9 budgets passed, and that was truly a conflict resolution in and of itself.
Ms. Stevens?
Well, first I was going to talk about my kids, but I'll stick to professional life. I work for a large corporation, and my job there is to work on systems migrations and systems decommissions, and often what that requires is being able to deal with people's conflicting feelings about what's happening, dealing with conflicting values and conflicting priorities. And so bringing people to the table, learning how to listen, learning how to find the common ground and move forward are skills that I use both on my job and in the community work that I do, and skills that I would look forward to bringing to the office of mayor.
Ms. Chambliss.
Conflict occurs in our daily lives, and we as residents and as officials have to look at ways to improve conflict and look at opportunities. Opportunities, I think, are really the way that I look at conflict, because I see a way of making things a lot better. So I do that in my work every day, at my job. I also am on the Human Rights Commission, and we deal with conflicts. Sometimes we talk about domestic violence issues or issues that are, about people's rights, and so that's how I deal with it.
Thank you. Mr. Gates?
6 months into my first term, we had a conflict in Brookdale Park area. We had students zipping through the park, creating a safety concern. The people on 75th Avenue wanted the entrance there closed because the kids were zooming through, but the residents on the June side didn't want it closed because then it created all the traffic coming in through one entry. So through much work of staff and myself and learning about how conflict works, of getting what's right, what's best, I think that's the way we need to continue to do it. We resolved it, we got it closed, and it's a much safer park.
And Mr. Lundy?
I would say, Mayor of City of Brooklyn Park, there is no special powers. There's nothing that gives you any more authority than any other council member. And, on those Monday nights, as a mayor, what you have to be able to do is pull groups of people together. And sometimes things get personal and things, can get argumentative. People can take things personally. And what I try to do, and I think the most important job as a mayor, is pull people together, remind people why we're there and what kind of goals we're trying to do. And you have to do that by not getting personal. You have to do that by respecting people's views, even as you may disagree with them completely. And that is really at the heart what a mayor does.
Thank you. What will you do to help fight Ebola virus in West Africa? Do you believe that Brooklyn Park has a role in addressing this issue? Mr. Parks.
They definitely have a role in that issue. I think the best thing you can do is support the people that are here in Brooklyn Park. They have family members and friends back there that are dying all the time through it. Giving supplies, giving the time or whatever they need, just listen to what the issues are and just follow suit with that. But I very much think the city needs to be involved with that issue.
Mr. Schmidt?
I believe that the residents of the city of Brooklyn Park have a moral obligation, just like the residents of any other city or any other country, to provide assistance if possible. Do I believe that the city itself should be providing some type of financial assistance? No, that's something for the federal government to do, not at the local government level.
Ms. Stevens?
Can you repeat the question? I just want to make sure I heard it correctly.
Sure. Yep. Hold on the timer for her. What will you do to help fight the Ebola virus in West Africa? Do you believe the city has a role in addressing the issue?
So personally, what I have done is I have donated funds and supplies to address the Ebola virus. I have friends and dear loved ones who have been personally impacted by the Ebola virus, and I have been a constant source of support for them. As the role of the city, I do not believe that the city of Brooklyn Park is a public health organization, and so as the city, we probably won't do anything to address the Ebola virus directly, but the role that the city should play is in supporting the people who live here in the city of Brooklyn Park who are directly impacted, whose families are impacted, and finding ways, as we already have, to educate where we need to provide education. Sorry.
That's okay. Ms. Chambliss.
Thank you. I do have friends who have been personally impacted by the Ebola virus, and I have donated funds to help resolve. It's not been a lot, but I've contributed. I've also think it's important for people to learn about it and be educated about it, and I've done that. I also educate other people about it. I've attended meetings that were partly sponsored by the City of Brooklyn Park and providing the space, and we should continue to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Gates.
I think the city's main role is support. We have 8,000 to 10,000 Liberians living in the city, and even more West Africans in a total. Having just been to Liberia and having seen the conditions there and having made a lot of friends there, it really concerns me, and it pains me to see what they're going through over there. But I think the city's main role is a support for those residents who have been impacted or have family that have been impacted.
Mr. Lundy?
I think there is a role. Every few days I get emails from the people I met when I was there, including the mayor of Kakata, our sister city. And it's heartbreaking when you hear about things, you hear about families being hurt. I think the biggest concern I had, and one of the things I did as mayor, was to go on national TV and talk about what our city's doing, to show support for the people in our community who are working hard, and they're just looking for an outlet. I think the biggest thing was to provide community health resources to people who are suffering trauma every day as they hear about family members being infected or passing away, and that's important for our community.
And Mr. Maida.
I have to agree with that. I don't think that we as a city should be should take on that role of a public health department, but I do think we do have a role of a support group. We can offer space, room, education, and that kind of thing to be able to get the residents together and bring in people that may be able to teach them and educate them on what the problem is and how to avoid it and prevent it and take care of it. But I do think that they need to, that our job is not as a public health department.
Okay. See, I'm trying to combine these last two. So it says, imagine you're taking a friend from out of town on a trip on the light rail to show them Brooklyn Park 10 years from now. What types of housing, entertainment, restaurants do you think you'd ever see, like a downtown in Brooklyn Park like there is in Osseo or Hopkins? Give me your thoughts on a future vision for Brooklyn Park. First responder will be Mr. Schmidt.
Peering into my crystal ball, I don't envision a traditional style downtown such as an Osseo or Robbinsdale. We have tried to put together several different downtown locations in Brooklyn Park over the years, and it hasn't worked out real well. The last report that we got from a consultant, is, at least as far as the North 610 area goes, is that what we were envisioning as a city is really not something that is going to be sustainable up there, that we need to reduce that commercial area. My hope is that we don't make the same mistakes that we made in the past.
Okay. Ms. Stevens?
I would agree with Mr. Schmidt. I don't believe that we would necessarily have a traditional downtown. Brooklyn Park is a far larger city than the other two cities given as an example, and so we have the opportunity to have a much broader vision for how it is that we develop the community. I would love to see 10 years from now along the Bottineau Light Rail transit line the development of lots of different varieties of opportunities and amenities on the south end that may look very different than what we would have on the north end or on the Target campus, and infinitely more reflective of the people who live inside of those communities.
Ms. Chambliss?
I have taken a trip on the light rail. I've gone on the Green Line, and I enjoyed that trip. I've also gone on a tour of what the Bottineau line would look like, and also saw what happened in the southwest part of town. So I have a vision about what it would look like. I think it'll help create jobs. It will help enliven parts of our community. It will give people access, and it will give people mobility. And I think that's going to be a good thing. And I'd like other people to take a look at videos of it and see and research.
Mr. Gates?
If light rail comes into Brooklyn Park, I believe it'll look a lot like the Green Line does today, with a mix of housing, retail. I think the Green Line itself, just where it travels through is a lot of what Brooklyn Park will look like.
Mr. Lundy?
I think what somebody might see if it does come is that they may stop at one stop and see people of very diverse backgrounds reflecting what America is going to be like in 20 years. Getting on, they're going to see another stop where they're going to see a lot of kids going to college, getting off, people who are going back to college at the community college. And I think my hope and vision is that they're going to arrive at 610, they're going to see 50,000 jobs sitting there. They're going to see corporations that are going to be globally recognized who are employing people in our community.
Mr. Maida?
That gave me enough time to actually make a vision of the light rail coming through Brooklyn Park. And as I see it, that we're on this light rail and it comes up the tracks along Bottineau Boulevard up to 169 and then goes up 169 to 101st and then back over towards the Target. That's how I see it happening.
All right. And Mr. Parks?
Well, that wasn't a vision I was expecting, but in 10 years, I vision if the light rail does come through, people have been asking for more retail and more restaurants up towards the 610 corridor. I think that's really important that we get something like that going. I mean, right now, people are getting tired of going to Maple Grove to eat and going to Coon Rapids to watch a movie. So I'd like to see, what I really envision is that we bring up the history of Brooklyn Park, and they also see the diversity that we have and how we work together.
Thank you. We're now going to move into our closing question, in which you have 1 minute to answer, and we're going to go in the reverse order from which we started. In summary, how do you intend to best serve Brooklyn Park and move it forward? Our first responder is Ms. Joy Stevens, who is running for mayor.
I intend to serve the city of Brooklyn Park by having a bold vision, by recognizing the sorts of opportunity and possibility that we have here in the city, and not being afraid to cast a bold vision, but also having the level of business and community experience and resources to be able to put that vision into action. I believe that part of what I will bring to that is a level of fiscal responsibility. Yes, I am the DFL endorsed candidate for mayor, but I do believe that we need to look at how we spend our money and make sure that we can't continue to overburden the people that live here in Brooklyn Park, our homeowners and our small businesses, by removing barriers to small business expansion, by putting our people first and not by honoring corporate interests above the people who call Brooklyn Park home. I'm going to keep on doing what I've already been doing by bringing people together and bringing real solutions to make the city of Brooklyn Park the best city that it can be.
Thank you. Running for the Central Ward of Brooklyn Center, or Brooklyn Park, we have Steve Schmidt.
Thank you. Again, some of the issues that we are facing are attracting high-quality development and redevelopment that will bring good jobs. The LRT line, spending, property taxes, and future housing needs, just to name a few. I have a strong dedication to Brooklyn Park and to all of our residents, and I will do my very best to represent all residents of the Central District and the city. I won't make any promises that I can't keep, and I won't shy away from making the tough decisions. Thank you.
Representing the East Ward, we have Terry Parks.
I have served the city since January of '82. I have a proven track record for being dedicated to whatever I join. I have spent many hours volunteering for my city, from working tater days to working smoked fries and mayor's prayer breakfast. I didn't go to the Ebola meetings to campaign. I went there to make a difference. An article was put out about me. It was asked, why would you vote for somebody who's just a part-time volunteer with no leadership skills? The article suggested that leadership is more important than volunteering. If you need help digging a ditch, I will be right beside you with a shovel. I won't be on top looking down, supervising. I can also tell you I'm here to represent all the people of Brooklyn Park, no matter what their political ties were. I won 8 out of the 9 precincts in the primary. That tells me that the people aren't wrong. From coaching to scouting, from commissions to fighting fires, God put me on this earth to be a public servant, and that's what I continue to do.
Thank you. Our lone representative from the West, Mr. Bob Maida.
Thank you. I felt it was important for me to be here tonight, even though I'm running unopposed, because I want everybody to still understand what my views are. Anyway, I want to continue to fight against our $2 million increase every year on our budget. I want to be the gatekeeper of your pocketbook, so to speak, as far as the city is concerned. I want to continue to support the youth programs. I brought the urban boat builders into Zanewood and met with them, and they have now, we finally found the grant money, no city money, but grant money to use, so they can come in here and they can work with the at-risk youth to help them build canoes out of wood and paper. And they're really, really beautiful. I've seen them, and I've talked to a number of youth that have done this, and they said what a difference it's made in their lives and how it turned them around. So I want to continue to do this and work with the youth and guard your pocketbook. Thank you.
Running for mayor, we have Jeffrey Lundy.
Thank you. When I decided to run, I am sick to death, like most people. Listen to people say, I fight for you. I'm going to fight for that. I'm going to fight for here. What I want, and that my campaign has been based on, is about results. And that's my focus, is not just fighting for something, but delivering. And so I challenge people to say, how many people have said they're going to lower crime? Actually done it. How many people said they're going to bring jobs to the city and actually done it? Those are the type of things that I believe, as a candidate, that I'm going to run on and say to you, you be the judge, and I'll be happy to let the voters decide what do they want to do. I think tackling tough issues like teen homelessness. We are the first community in the state to stand up a teen homeless shelter. It didn't happen by accident. It happened because people rolled up their sleeves of all different persuasions and said, this evil act of exploiting children needs to stop. You talk about a golf course that was kind of just lingering. And what we did was we said, you know what, we need to put a plan together. So when issues have come before the city, tough, easy, I've always been there. I've always tried to say, let's do what's right for the city, not in the short term, but the long term as well.
Thank you. Representing the Central Ward, we have Mr. Rich Gates.
Thank you. I'm going to continue to do what I do now. It's work for all residents, be a champion for youth, work for our aging population, keep taxes in check, keep our neighborhoods healthy and safe, continue to bring high-quality jobs, businesses, restaurants to the city of Brooklyn Park, and to continue to say no where it's appropriate.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have representing the East Ward, Ms. Reva Chambliss.
I'm going to bring to the city of Brooklyn Park my over 25 years of service leadership, my over 25 years of volunteering, my over 25 years of working with communities to make them better. I want to use my experience and my background to benefit the city of Brooklyn Park. That's basically what I'm here for. I believe in our city. I believe we can accomplish a lot. I think we can prosper and have equity. I think we can have safe and stable neighborhoods. And I think we can make Brooklyn Park a destination city by developing and redeveloping, getting our retail, getting our restaurants, making our neighborhoods, our parks and recreations even better. And that's what I want our people to look at. I want to ask them to look at my qualifications. I want to ask them to look at what you want in a leader and pick that person. And I hope it's going to be me.
Thank you. Once again, on behalf of the League of Women Voters and the North Hennepin Area Chamber of Commerce, I would like to thank the candidates for all of you agreeing to participate in tonight's forum. I would also like to thank the voters for attending and participating by submitting excellent questions, and I would like to thank the viewing audience as well. Remember, if we could not get to your question tonight or you have any further questions or concerns for the candidates, we invite you to contact them directly. Please remember to go out and vote on November 4th, as your vote truly counts. Thank you and have a good evening.